I see we have a quorum tonight. And can I get an approval of this agenda for this work session, please?
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
I second.
Okay. All in favor with a show of hands? Okay. So we'll start the evening with Mr. Glenn with Vokert.
Thank you. It's good afternoon, everyone. There's a little bit of our update of where we're standing on the capital improvement program. There should be a PowerPoint there. I don't know if you've got it on your screens or not. Right now, out of the 36 projects, we've got 25 of the architect's agreements that have been fully executed and back in their hands. 21 of the purchase orders have been issued, and we've got 8 architect agreements that have some little bit of insurance or other nuances that we're trying to work through. No real problems, just some technicalities. We've got 3 that are remaining that are in review right now. And we've got projects. Thank you. On the kickoff meetings for the project and architect orientations, we've held orientations at Blunt Elementary School, Halcyon, Carver Elementary, Carver High. The Jeff Davis High one we did today, and later this week we'll be doing the orientation for Bayer. Our short-term look ahead is to have schematic design underway and be meeting with the architects to keep up with their design progress as it goes through the design, and we need to work on site acquisition for one of the schools, and we've got surveys being worked on with the surveyors right now, and our next step would be get the geotechnical engineers on board to be able to test the soils. Our next slide is for the minority participation report. We've been teaming with KMS, KWZ, and Pathway Research Studios as our partners. Yes, ma'am.
Can we put it up there? Oh, okay.
Do you have a?
I did not bring my electronic copy, but I did
Okay,
email
so-
it to.
So we can't put it up there because we don't have it.
Can you forward it from?
We'll just get added into assembly.
Leslie's upstairs, but, you know, we put pretty good.
This is our minority participation disadvantage business enterprise reporting, and as I mentioned before, as Volker.
Can you hold the mic so we can record this at the, thank you.
Volker has teamed with KMS, KWZ, and Pathway Research Studios as our partners in this project. Of the architects that we've got on board right now, of the $18.7 million worth of design fee that would be going to the architects, over $10 million of that is going to MBE-DBE ownership. This is the same pie chart, just with percentages showing that 53% is for minority participation and the 47% is majority-owned firms. That concludes our update for this month. If you've got any questions?
I don't necessarily have a question for you, but I guess I can wait until Chad does his report. Because, as a whole, I was looking for, answers on how are we today, percentage-wise, for minority participation as a full MPS. And we've been requesting that information, and I thought that it was gonna be presented at some point, because data was being gathered as to where we are and to be able to chart it, to make sure that we are on our path to maximizing, our policy.
I put mine in for the projects that I've got going right now for my minority participation, but as far as like the whole system,
If with procurement, we're working with procurement now and gathering that information and identifying all the DPEs and MDEs of organizations, and we will be able to provide, a report, of those, participated, rates.
Okay, but Mr. Watts, I've been asking for this information, and I was told that it was gonna come up in the May meeting. So could you give me a timeline that we will be receiving that information?
We're more so now, and I'll give it Mr. Rudolph, we're more so now in a data collection, situation. One of the problems is that, and of course, I haven't been here that long, but it's something that we are working on. It's just collecting all of the data, identifying those vendors that are minority vendors, and ensuring that we capture that information. Now, when we identify all of those vendors, then we should be able, or we will be able to print out a report that show exactly how much, minority participation related to goods or services that we are expending out of our total budget.
So may I ask this question, maybe to see if we can put it in some sort of framework? How far back are we trying to go to gather that information? How far back do you want us to go, Ms. Brown? Last 2 or 3 years, last 5 years?
I would be satisfied with, when we started the,
With the policy?
Where we were at that time of the
Right.
policy, and have we had any movement?
Right.
That should be simple enough.
It is.
That's less than 1 year.
And that's what I asked them to do, to go back when the policy started and move forward from that
Yeah,
point.
And we are moving from October 1st of 2021 to current. It's the data that we're collecting. But the first thing we have to do, because there was no collection process in place, until, we came up, we talked about this, and now we are collecting the data to identify those particular vendors.
So I can't see that we have that many minority vendors, Mr. Water, but I'm just,
And we don't, and we are working with some other entities, at Alabama State and some other entities that helps us to identify those particular vendors so that we will have them as part of our database.
And I will say this, Volkert has certainly exceeded the, what our expectations were, which were 30% at 53%. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And I do see what Ms. Brown is saying. She would like to know how much, we are expending out of all of the
I agree.
state and federal and local revenues that we're receiving
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I very much agree. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Thornton, Communication International, Inc., contract.
Like I said, good evening, all board members, Madam Superintendent, community stakeholders. Here to talk about our communication system, our radio system that we currently have. I'm the Director of Transportation there at 5000 Troy Highway. The system that is currently there probably has been there since the building was put there. And what we have is a radio system that we're trying to communicate with 212 routes of people, 156 on the general ed side, and 62 or so on the special needs side. So what we have is all of these people plus the mechanic shop communicating on one channel. So that's very congested, very ineffective communication. A lot of people are running to and talking over one another. So the company that we're with was formerly Hurricane, and now they're Communications International. And what they've got proposed for us is we're going to be able to get a new system inside of the building in 3 locations. There'll be a system that's set up for the general ed side, system set up for the special needs side, and there's going to be a channel for the mechanic side. So there'll be a different channel for each one of those different departments. There will be a communication system put in a rack in the mechanic shop on the 2nd floor, so we'll be able to service it. What we have right now, if anything breaks on that equipment, because it's so old, you can't get a part for the equipment. It no longer exists. So by getting this new equipment, we'll be able to service it if something goes wrong with it. And it's going to add for us, and then our towers is the second thing. We have 2 towers. One that's on Snowden Chambers Road that's not serviceable, and it actually has a tarp over the top of it, and it's not climbable. So we're partnered with the county, and that's where we have our repeater on that particular tower. So they're going to move that tower, build a new tower on Hillary Road, and we'll still be on the new tower. And we had a repeater at Jackson Street. The Jackson Street tower has fallen, but that belongs to the city. The city already has a contract to get a new tower, and everybody that was on that tower will be able to go back on. So the city, we're partnered with the city. They're going to allow us to get on their tower. So once we get those, we're talking about a 4 to 6 month operation as far as everything coming to fruition. And primarily what we're dealing with is the time period in which the city and the county will be able to erect those towers. But in the meantime, we'll already have all of our equipment ready and ready to install as soon as they are complete. Also, we currently, our radios on our buses are all analog. And with this new system, we'll be able to upgrade to digital. And so, and with the towers that we're getting, the new towers, there's going to be more power with those towers, and also generator backup. And there's going to be a whole lot better reception. We got a lot of routes in the outer line areas in the county, and we really suffer when we have, foggy weather and things of that nature. So with this new system that we have, and it's going to be able to, we can add to this system. The infrastructure we have now, we can't add anything to the towers. We can't add anything to what we have on the inside. So it'll be something that we can progress with throughout, add channels if we need to, with very little cost if we have to do these things. So right now, we're hanging on by a thread. And the beauty of all of this is that we have so many drivers that are more seasoned drivers. They all know each other. They know one another's routes. They know where everybody should be. And so that makes this a little more feasible than it would be if we didn't have people that really didn't know what was going on. But we got to get this done so that it could be safe and definitely more efficient for us to run this operation.
Any questions?
I had one. Is there GPS embedded in this? I don't know why I thought I saw that.
We currently have GPS on all of our buses.
Okay,
And this system is going to be compatible with the GPS we already have.
okay, good.
And even the handheld Motorola radios that we have, this system is going to be compatible with that, so we won't have to buy new radios either.
Oh, that's even better.
How long will it take to install this?
Well, the installation is not so much what we have to do,
It's on the city.
it's the county and the city.
Well, I
with-
understand the
with that tower.
towers,
So,
but
right, so we're talking about a 4 to 6 month operation, and primarily we're looking at them, not Communication International.
okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Unfortunately, this is a one-time expenditure that will be paid for from our state transportation fund.
And not the general fund? I was looking at it on here.
It's gonna be state
State,
transportation.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to thank the board for approving that 15.5% has been super for morale, and the $2,000 retention bonus, and for those people who are coming on, it's been great. We have a job fair, I think tomorrow, and I think that's going to be something that's going to be very beneficial for us, so we can get some more bus drivers, because we're about 26 bus drivers short. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Gillis, compensation study?
Good evening to our board members,
Good evening.
Dr. Moore. In your packet, you should have received two proposals from me, a proposal A and a proposal B. And I'm purposefully not calling the names of the companies, because we've got to have some discussion and then you'll have to make a decision. In proposal A, you'll see that this company has done some work with various entities, if you've had a chance to peruse it, but none of them being K-12. Thus, the price is very different from proposal B. They've done a lot of work in HR management, but to look at a compensation study for a K-12 setting is very different from some other entities. If you look at proposal B, you'll see that, and I will say with proposal A, they are reputable, a very reputable company, but with proposal B, this company has done work with K-12. Very recently, someone very near to us, and it is a large school district. So they've done large school districts, they've done all of the others that the other company has done, but we feel like proposal B will probably serve us better. Although the money is different, sometimes you really do get what you pay for. So I want you to consider that when the superintendent makes a recommendation. Once again, both companies have been vetted by not only me, but I've also shared it with Mr. Watts, and we both are in agreement that proposal B is the best company for us at this point in time. Questions?
I think so, thank you. Okay. Organizational structure chart.
Okay, items D, E, and F, all together. These are items that are our incoming superintendent wishes to deal with. In my discussion with Dr. Brown, one of the things we talked about was that, in Alabama, we have to get board approval on most items. And so to change the organizational chart, to change, which would then have a chief of staff, there's a job description that has been submitted for that, and then also a salary schedule for the chief of staff. So these three items are items that Dr. Brown has floated. I'm bringing so that the timing pieces of putting it out there, getting the board to vote on it, advertising for so many days, et cetera, can be in the works prior to him getting here. But you should have a memo in your packet that says this is basically what he would like to do. I would not be advertising or recommending a chief of staff to you. That is something that, Dr. Brown will do when he arrives, but all of the timing pieces will have already been taken care of, like the advertising and things like that. So, all of this has to be approved by the board first. If you approve the chart, then the job description has to be approved, and then the job can be advertised, but not until those things happen.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So in here is a job, I guess, for general counsel. Is that recommending to hire a general counsel to be on staff?
That's not part of this. Eventually, Dr. Brown might bring someone to you as a general counsel. Right now, we use a firm.
But it had the arrow going to that, so that's why I was asking.
It's part of your other,
It's already on our
org
chart.
chart.
Oh, okay.
It's already on the other org chart. These things that are on here tonight are the things that he wants to get going on. At some point, you know, for instance, if the question is about an in-house general counsel as opposed to a firm, that he could bring up to you later. You know, we've been advertising for one for the last year at least or two, and we haven't found anybody yet. But that is a part of the organizational chart, Ms. Bailey, but not part of what this is tonight.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So this information that's presented to us, I guess when I read over it, there were some questions that I had that maybe we're not able to answer here because you are speaking on behalf of Dr. Brown. And I would feel more comfortable getting perspective and insight and clarity as to, you know, what this would impact these, you know, this organizational chart. Because there were some words that were used in the organizational chart that I needed to make sure that, for instance, chief of staff in the duties and job description, the job description is very similar to what Mr. Mitchell is currently doing. So would Mr. Mitchell's job change and somebody else, whoever the chief of staff is, take over some of Mr. Mitchell's duties? And without having that information, I feel a little uncomfortable.
When the organizational chart that we have now, instead of it being called a chief of staff, it's called deputy superintendent.
I understand.
And
But
the
I'm
job duties are a little bit different.
Right, and so that's what I need clarity on, because the job duties are very much similar to the current job duties of Mr. Mitchell.
And I would agree with Cassandra. I mean, we're already top-heavy. We've been told we were top-heavy. It's just more money we're spending. I will bet you right now it's a 6-digit salary. It's not even something we discussed. We just had our superintendent tell us that she wouldn't do that. And that you're not recommending a chief of staff. I see y'all getting, okay, forget it, maybe I took it wrong. My point is we just keep spending this money, and not one time have we discussed academia or anything for these kids. We haven't discussed anything about retired teachers coming back, how we're gonna recruit new teachers. We're still at that central office, a thing that I have fought for 8 years.
Well, keep in mind too, we're still at 3% of our budget.
I hear that story every time. Give me something, we have 3%, but let me tell you where we're at. We're at bottom. We're at bottom academically.
I think that's what Dr. Brown is trying to preclude.
He's bringing a buddy.
Well, I don't know.
He's bringing a buddy.
Whatever he's doing, he's trying to affect.
Whatever. It's gonna be a 6-1.
That was not my concern. My concern was really getting an understanding on what,
Why we need
you
it
know,
and
what
then the overlap.
what impact this would have on what we already have.
Okay, so let me say this, not speaking for Dr. Brown, because I can ask him your questions, But I would say this, in the other org chart, there is a position called deputy superintendent. I personally, as a superintendent, would tell you that in a system with 52 schools, you need a deputy superintendent. I've been a deputy, so I've been able to segue from superintendent to deputy, and that's what I do all day long, every day. That typically does not happen in a system this size. So that other person, whether you call it deputy or chief of staff, is kind of like your right-hand assistant. So that, you know, people want you to be out and about and here and there, and then you have to make things happen every day in the school system. Difficult job for one person to do. I will tell you that because I know it to be true. But I managed to do it. I did not choose a deputy because I knew that someone would be coming in. I thought it was only fair that that new person be able to choose the person that's going to be their right hand. But if you look at the beginning words of each one of those job description things, it talks about supervising the executive director, ensuring alignment, providing leadership, establishing a support team, collaborating with the chief academic officer. So this person would be the one who helps orchestrate and make sure that all of these things happen from different perspectives. They would not be hands-on doing those jobs themselves, but they would be supervising a lot of people to make sure that these things happen. That's how a deputy or a chief works. They make sure that things happen, but you have all these different department heads. You know, like in my role now, I talk with Chad, I talk with Watts, I talk with Kim, I talk with Williamson, I talk with Marvin, I talk with Thornton, I talk with everybody all day long, every day, to see what's going on and how can we make it better. So I do that as a superintendent. Typically, superintendents don't do that on a day-to-day basis, hands-on. They have someone else who helps make sure those things happen. But any question that you might have, Ms. Brown, I will be happy to take them and send them to Dr. Brown to see if he can add any clarity to, and I will say that to all of the board members, if you have something like that, shoot it to me and we'll get it to Dr. Brown and get him to add or clarify for you from his perspective.
And maybe he doesn't know about Bernard Mitchell and how much his job thing overlaps. And maybe he would consider just bumping up
Okay.
Bernard.
Well, we
Well,
can't just
you
promote
can't just,
somebody
you
just.
have to have the job, you have to have the job
But they
there.
overlap. I mean, we seem like we've done fine without them, but, you know. probably
Yeah, let me say this, and I'm not trying to defend anybody, I'm just gonna say this. I've been a director of elementary and a deputy superintendent and an assistant superintendent, and I always answered to a deputy who then said, okay, these are the things we need to get done in the system, and then shared that information with the superintendent in a sort of oversight perspective. So I think that's what we're trying to get at here. That's what I would have tried to get at with a deputy superintendent, someone to kind of be between the superintendent and the people out there who are over these departments, but to help make those things happen, to ensure, to supervise, to collaborate, to, you know, there are a lot of moving parts in the school system. And so I think the difficulty for a superintendent in a system this size is to make all of those moving parts move together when they need to, and still at the same time carry on the duties of the superintendent. So I would say, board members, if you have questions, shoot them to me. We'll get them to Dr. Brown and ask him to give us clarity.
And one last thing too. I just have to make this comment. You could go back to the YouTube and look, but the last meeting, Spud Sills sat out there and I said, well, we don't have council. And he goes, what? Yes, we do have council. Now we're saying we don't have council.
No.
We could get council.
No,
We
ma'am,
have a
we have
firm.
a firm.
You know.
We've always had legal counsel. I've come from several places where you do not have an in-house counsel. There's nothing wrong with it, but when you have a firm, if you have real estate issues, money issues, hearing issues, whatever, that firm can pull from a lot of people to cover that specialty area, specialty areas. Whereas if you have an in-house counsel, they do it's not unusual for a school system to have a firm.
I get it, but like last time, I felt like I was getting it. Now y'all are getting double. We don't have I miss
Yeah,
it?
We just don't have an in-house person, but we have a firm that does our legal work for us in Montgomery.
Just one more question from me.
Yes, ma'am.
So, we need to decide this tonight, or could we send our list of questions or concerns and carry this over?
Since he's gonna be here next month too.
Yeah, I think the timing is,
What's the rush?
the rush is so that when Dr. Brown gets here, he's in motion to do what he wants to do to make MPS better. That's the only thing. I mean, we don't have to do it tonight. It's just
I just don't like
Well, you know, it's
a
really.
cloud. I think better when I'm clear about what we're talking about. And I just feel like this could wait.
Well,
Yeah.
being in this school, working in Montgomery Public Schools for many years, one of the things that I experienced as a teacher, we had a lot of superintendents coming in one after the other, and having a smooth transition is extremely important. Having things in place so that we don't have to wait. There's already going to be a learning curve. So when the new superintendent comes in, if he has the framework in place, so that the movement of getting a new superintendent can flow easier, I think it's truly paramount in this situation.
I can understand and appreciate what you're saying, but Dr. Brown is coming here less than a month from now to start his contract work. Is that not correct?
well, he actually starts July 1st.
I thought that his contract work started.
He will
Yes.
be collaborating with Dr. Moore.
That is the contract that we approved.
The 15 days.
The
or so.
15 days.
15 days.
Yes.
But it's not his full contract.
Right, but I
It's-
thought that was
he has-
in June, correct?
Yes, but that's collaboration.
I understand that. I mean, I understand all of that, but that's 15 days, and that's just my opinion, okay?
Well, I will throw in an opinion. I have long thought we needed a deputy, and I can understand, if he wants to change the term to chief of staff. I think a part of the rush, if we're going to use that terminology, is so that the job can be advertised and we can start getting applications and get a person in here. I also understand Ms. Brown's concerns about the duplication or overlapping job description. So if the org chart is approved, does that automatically approve the items in the job description?
They're separate items.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on that at the moment? Okay. Mr. Hall, GPS Education Services contract.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am coming to you guys. I need to perform a transition period at Carver High School that lasts longer than a day. In the past, I've had the students come from my theater program, and they've come to the school, and it's just been one day, in and out. I want to do a 2-week program with the students in the school, as well as a program they can take, and I can check on their progress through the couple of months, from June 1st through July 29th, with coordination with GPS Contractual Services. They will provide computers as well as the material for the students to gather or gain. I've looked at my numbers coming from the feeder program. I have 180 coming from my largest feeder program. 82 of those students have to go to summer school. So I'm trying to capture the rest of those students, and statistics show that if you can get a student to survive the 9th grade and have experience and success, she will become a dropout. I have some Title I funds. well, and I would like to use those to perform such services. I have some flyers if you need me to provide flyers.
Any questions for Mr. Hall? Mr. Anderson, facilities update.
Yes, ma'am, I'll go through the spreadsheet, operations update spreadsheet. Spreadsheet I provided on the breakdown for the two projects that we have as far as MBDB participation afterwards. Of course, Volkert has presented their piece. The group contract that we have before you is there. That got pushed a bit of good news. It was good when we encountered some asbestos in the caulk that was in there, and so there had to be some a plan put in place for remediation to take those out again. If there's asbestos in the caulk or masking that's in there, as long as you don't disturb it, it's no problem. But of course, we're talking about replacing those windows and HVAC there. The building had to kind of back up the fun on that one. That's why Brewtech kind of moved ahead of it as far as the contract there. But you'll see down below, the Goodwin bid opening is this week, so we'll have that. That's moving ahead. The office consolidation change order. There's a few items on there. A couple of things. The stucco that was in the bathrooms, they started cutting the holes for the HVAC in there, and some of it started breaking apart. So they asked to remove that. So we moved ahead with giving them preliminary. A preliminary go-ahead based upon tonight, contingent upon tonight, and then also the doors in the back part of the building. We were trying to reuse those. They were rusted out, so we had to remove those for sure. And then the big one is the oil pump that goes into the elevator there. That was something as TK ThyssenKrupp came in to do their analysis. We were trying to reuse what was there to bring it up to code. That's the big one on there, the $14,000 that we had to do with that. When you get these old buildings and the renovations that are involved in there, you're going to peel back some stuff when you start opening up roofs and that sort of thing and going into walls. Yes, ma'am?
I'm just gonna tell those ladies, maybe they can,
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
two seats up there, right down the end,
So
right,
that,
on the end, all the way to the end, right, there you go.
So that's the change order there. We know there's a couple more coming. We peeled back one of the roofs. There's some rusting on some decking. That'll be a future change order. And then the flooring in the old cafeteria, it's in parts. It's coming loose. So we're trying to assess there. So, but that'll be a future change order with that central office consolidation project. The Brubaker Dozier mansard roofs. Dozier is complete. The mansard part, the shingle part. They're probably about 40%, went by Brubaker today, about 40% complete with that. They started on the primary side, they were way around back. They were on the intermediate side, working some today. And also that metal part, that'll be replaced also. They're doing those all at the same time, those both sides. That'll be coming along as well. The T.S. Morris South Lawn re-roof. T.S. Morris, the shingle part is complete. And South Lawn Middle is very near complete. I know I have 50% in here, but with the good weather that we've had, they've really jumped ahead on that. There are some flat roof parts that are in both of those. Again, they're going to do those at the same time, but glad to get those going as well. The BTW construction update, of course, we made that visit last week. During that time, the OAC meeting that was presented before that meeting, the Amison, the general contractor, is having some issues with supply chain with some of the roofing materials and other items, and of course they're asking for an extension on the contract with that. We're working those details as far as days out with them, and I've been keeping Dr. Starks up to date with that as well. Love her attitude, and we want it done right. We've waited this long. We don't want to press anybody, and the architects, just assured like you don't want to press those contractors so hard that you get the B team for the roofers out there. You want to make sure you get their best foot forward. I think you saw some awesome things there, and I look forward to bringing that to. You got to unplug it to do it. You got to. I'm sorry. You have to unplug it to do it. We've dealt with that one before, but I'll plug it back up and get it going. Sorry, I do technology too. But I think you saw the amenities that are there. We look forward to bringing those to all of our schools. I know we're excited, getting ready to go on some new construction and renovation for all of our buildings. One of the things, I've taken Volkert through that facility. We know that Baldwin's a sister school of BTW. We want to make sure we have some of those same amenities, maybe not quite as grand a scale with those, but sufficient enough that they can make a step from Baldwin to BTW. And then, of course, with our newer schools that are coming in, the new Lee or whatever that school will be called in Capitol Heights, we'll look forward to putting them in a good, safe environment that's much more easily secured than what they're in now, the current environment that they're in. I mean, it's just, it was fine for the times. The times today call for something a little bit different. We look forward to putting our kids in those places and getting them into a good, safe environment. The central office consolidation, a little update on that, and look forward to taking you through it. We've completed the remediation on the bottom floor there. There was some asbestos in the glue that held down the tile on top of the old wood floor. So that remediated and removed, and they're starting to move down into that. That kind of held us up a little bit there, but they've been going very, very quickly on the upper floors. If you've gone by there, you've seen some, you may have recognized some of the new windows in the second and third floor. A lot of your HVAC cassettes are put in. They're pulling the refrigeration lines in the second and third floor. If you look on the other side where the cafeteria is, that is totally gutted, and getting ready to start doing some framing and putting in the windows back in there. And then we have a smaller building that'll be CMP maintenance. Will be that smaller building down there. They've done a lot of cleaning out and getting that ready, and then we've secured the area as well with some new perimeter fencing around there. So it's moving very well on schedule at this point. Hopefully supply chain holds out, and we can continue to get our materials on time and with those certain items. The good one, we mentioned that 511 for that bid opening. Logistics roof and renovation, we've had some delays on that in getting word back from DCM, Department of Construction Management. They've had a lot of turnover. They've got a new director. They've got new engineers put in place. So I think it has delayed a few of those things. But we should be getting ready to do that bid opening as well. Coming in here, it actually got confirmation that it's going to be pushed to May 18th, not May 10th. But we should have that one on the next board meeting for approval. Vaughn Road, Wares Ferry, McKee, MLK, Fitzpatrick roofs. You see those different dates there. Wanted to provide that for you with the advertisements, the pre-bids, and the bids. One thing we've done, these other projects that we have, they were put in motion prior to the policy being put in place for the MVDBE. This point forward, they will have all of our policy put into the special provisions, and each one of the advertisements and all that'll go out for when they pre-qualify those general contractors will get those things. Roofs are very difficult because it's usually just one contractor, and they don't really do subbing out like concrete, masonry. There's not a lot of those kind of things, so it's usually just one contractor. And of course, we looked on the stuff that Mr. Rudolph provided from Alabama State. There's really no roofing contractors in the area that are MBDBE at this point that have bid on any of our projects, but we'll continue to do our best to try to increase that as well. Some IT items at the bottom there. Ms. Tony Patterson has been working very hard on that. That's one of my departments with the wireless access point upgrades. You see the list of schools. You're right. All of those will be done by this summer, the end of this summer. And what the wireless access points you see in the middle of the roof here, or the middle of the ceiling here, that's an access point. That provides internet to who's ever in the room. Prior to being one-to-one, you didn't have 30 devices between 2, maybe 3 rooms. So those were spread out amongst 2 or 3 rooms within each building and along hallways. So one of those may service, at that point, may have serviced 3 rooms, which was okay. It was adequate because we didn't have the one-to-one. A lot of our schools, they may be using, this group may be using an iPad today, next group may be using it. Now everybody has one of those. Everybody has a device. So we've had to upgrade those. So Ms. Tony has been working on that, getting the access points upgraded so that we have full capabilities. And plus also with the testing coming along from the state being more online is something that we really wanted to get done as well. The next-gen servers for MPS Finance upgraded. It got to a point where Mr. Watt's servers that they work off of in the finance department could no longer receive updates. They were so old and so outdated that they could not receive those updates. So Ms. Patterson worked on those to get those upgraded as well, with very little downtime on those, just maybe a half a day on that to really get those back up and running. You see we've worked on the 3rd round of interactive panels. We've placed over 1,000 of those, about 1,152 out in the schools, and they continue to do more and more of those. Those were provided through ESSER funds. The switch upgrades at the schools and the administration buildings, again, that gives us more capability for connectivity with the switches in the schools. The switches take the information that is provided through the next part of it, the upgrade, the service that we have, and it spreads, the switches help spread it out to the different rooms to provide more capability on items. And then the final piece right there, the internet upgrade from 5 gigs to 20 gigs. We went from 5 to 10, and then we found that we were using somewhere between 14 and 16 gigs. So we upgraded it to 20, and that puts us up there with systems like Mobile that are more than twice our size. And also it gives us great capability with those things. You think of it like a hose pipe. If you're trying to get this much information, this big of a hose pipe, you're going to have a breakdown. And that's what was happening, especially when we go to testing with the access points. We're trying to pull so much data through a hose pipe this big, and we weren't able to operate like that. So by providing the 20 gigs, it opened that hose pipe up and should help us with our connectivity out there in the district. And then the last piece there was a spreadsheet on the breakdown for our 2 projects. Again, these projects were set in motion prior to the policy being put in place, but wanted to give you some update from the GC there, because they do, in speaking with Amison, they had already had it in their policy to reach out for these entities, MBE, DBEs, and you see the statement there in the middle that they provided, using a database similar to what Mr. Rudolph and Mr. Watts were speaking about with Alabama State, trying to locate and find MBE, DBEs. And you see the different breakdown there for the different areas with demolition, concrete, masonry, structural steel, painting, and then down at the bottom, MPS, we have the furniture for the BTW site. We're utilizing 2 MBE-DB furniture providers for those there.
Chad, this may be jumping the gun, but I wondered if maybe the next couple of meetings, maybe when our new superintendent gets here, that we could do an update on these pictures of BTW, because I think we all went out there with our hard hats and saw it, and I absolutely was totally impressed. I didn't know all the things that y'all were doing. I knew a lot, but I didn't know about the law room. I'd love to see the atrium on here. I'd like to see the black room where everybody's going to be, on stage and stuff. And I think the public should see the pictures of that progress along with this new. And I know that's extra work, but if they saw that, I think they'd see Montgomery. They'd see we know Montgomery's moving forward with education. Those pictures, I think, would let the public see, other things that are being done that are phenomenal.
Yes, ma'am. And I didn't provide as much this time because I know you guys made the visit out there. But this next meeting, if weather stays like it is, they have really made some jumps out there. Went out there again today, and I mean, they're already, by the end of this week, they will finish the steel erection that they had, and then they will have all the concrete taken out. They're putting windows in, HVACs getting mounted in the core curriculum part. Most of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, when you get all this weather and that sort of thing, that's where they kind of turn into. That's 75 to 80% complete, and I would imagine by the end of this month, it'll be mostly complete. There's just certain things you have to wait on as far as that roof, when the metal roof gets in, to put that in. By the end of June, their hope is good weather. May is when the end of May is supposed to get here. The end of June to have us totally in the dry in the Magnet Arts black box in the cafeteria over there. So you will really start to see some jumps in there, because then you can finish the sheetrock and the paint. You can start the painting, but you can't do those things until you get totally in the dry in those areas. But they're moving along, and I can just tell a difference in the atmosphere and the attitude out there. You can just tell that they're feeling good about where they're getting to, because we've had some good weather here the last couple of weeks.
I just personally want to thank you for letting me put on a hard hat and go see this.
The fine Volkert folks, they're going to give you guys one here shortly. So
I'm ready.
You're going to get a fancy one with that one. So.
Okay. Any other questions for?
Yes, one comment, a few questions. I wanted to say that Booker T. Washington Magnet High School has a phenomenal structure, and I remember talking to Dr. Stark some time ago, and her just graciousness and willingness of course it's for the students that attend her school, but just literally lending it out to the students in the community. And I saw her come in somewhere back there, but I just kind of, hello. And I just thank her for that, just being that kind of visionary leader for our students. So she represents well in everything that she does. My other question is about the central office consolidation. I can't remember when we began that process of renovating it to house central office and the boardroom and all of that. So when was that started, and what is our anticipated, providing the weather holds up, but when do we anticipate being finished with that project?
The construction started around December, January, but the design started way long time ago.
Of this year in January?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that part was later on, but the design part of it started it's been over a year and a half on that, for that design. They anticipated they're going to give it to us in a phase, like that 3-story building, the main building. We're looking at that around this time next year, being able to move into there, and that would be this location and Bellinger Hill, and then across the street where the old cafeteria is, that's Fuse. What's currently in Fuse now, Student Services and C&P. Student Services will be on the bottom floor, and then C&P will be on the top floor. We're going to put a small test kitchen in the back of that, where Miss Beard can bring in local chefs, different groups, or do trainings for her staff in there on how to prep foods and do different things with the menus that are provided. That's our goal for that. And then also on the other end, away from their offices, there will be a small little meeting gathering space there that Student Services can use, or C&P can use, or really any entity. On the 3-story side, you've got curriculum and HR down on the bottom floor. The second floor is special education, and the third floor is finance, the superintendent, and federal programs. That necessarily didn't work out just because of who they are. It more dealt with looking at the scope of who's in their groups to try to make it fit into the space that provided there. That's why, like special education, it has such a large group. They got that whole second floor with what they do up there. So that's the reason why it worked out there. And then parts of curriculum are already over there in the old gymnasium side. And then down below you have assessment and hippie that are already over there. And that part will be looking to move professional PD over there this summer sometime. Waiting on the elevator inspection to be finished. That'll take us out of the old PSC, and then we're already out of Fair West that was over behind Carver Elementary. So that's Hippie that was over in that area. It'll be taken out of they've already been taken out and are already over there, located there.
With the PSC building, will we be informed as to what the plans are for that building in the future?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Watts and I have met with a couple of realtors, and we're trying to get some stuff and set up a meeting with Dr. Moore as far as getting a few realtors in to interview to bring to you guys. I know that was a wish and a goal for the board, was to have a commercial realtor on call there to put those and advertise those. That's our goal. Dr. Moore's made that plain. We want a sign in each one of those properties, and we want somebody representing us that's what they do for a living, just like a legal counsel. We don't want to go into a courtroom by ourselves. We don't want to go into a real estate thing by ourselves either.
Wonderful. My other question is about Vaughn Road. Now, I saw the braces on the side, so what's that all about?
Yes, ma'am. One of those precast concrete fascia, it slipped down, and so they've gone in and analyzed it. We had risk management in last week. That's who deals with the insurance. They looked at Katoma and Vaughn Road. There are T-welds that are in that precast fascia that have broken loose, and it is due to that ground movement over there. So we've got it temporarily braced. You'll see a big crane coming in. They've already torn it out underneath. Well, we've got a crane for both sites, for Katoma and for Vaughn Road. They try to coordinate the two together. They're going to have to lift up that, weld it back in, and they're going to put some extra bracing in. We have an architect and Mr. Scott Williams that presented to y'all. He does our roofs. And then he brought in a structural engineer as well. And, of course, all of that stuff will go through DCM as far as the approval of those to make sure it's done correctly and held together. But, yeah, it's from the ground movement that's over there. But we're going to brace up. They looked at all of that around. And then we're also, since Ware's Ferry is similar construction or exact construction, we're going to check that out just to make sure they don't have the ground issues that Ware's Ferries have.
Is it a saw thing, maybe?
I don't know. It's not necessarily the whole part of the building, but that side of the building, the west part. If you go out there and you walk around the perimeter, you'll notice that the sidewalk, there are pieces of the sidewalk that have popped up on that side. We've had an issue, and it's been there for a lot of years. So they're going to fix the sidewalk and repair that part of it, and then of course we'll get a new roof coming here shortly. Hopefully by the end of the summer, have that contract in place.
Okay, that was my only
Yes, ma'am.
question.
So children, have you relocated them?
Yes, ma'am. We relocated. We met with the principal, relocated the children out of that area. She worked with us. We took one of the portables that was in the back, and that was one of our units that has to have special attention, that needs water and that sort of thing. So we worked with Lindsay over there and got them water into one of those portables and all. And our departments do so many awesome things, and I can't brag on them enough. The districts that I've been in, they didn't have the capabilities that our people have in our operations department to make happen what they made happen in-house as quickly as they did it within less than a week. Is amazing. I mean, and we do that on a daily basis in our different departments, all of our departments. So it's just an honor to work with those people. They do an awesome job.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Watts.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Dr. Moore should have before you the financial statement for the month of March. Of course, the month of March represents 1/2 of fiscal year 2022. As you know, our fiscal year began in October and, of course, end in September. So this is the 6th month of fiscal year 2022. In the financial statement, you will have the explanation of financial data, which is basically a brief discussion that I do that speaks to the financial standing of our district as of March of 2022. A snapshot analysis, which is a brief synopsis of the district's financial position as of March of 2022. Monthly budget percentages, again, this is the 6th month of the fiscal year, which represents 50% of the fiscal year. A monthly and annual comparative statement of revenues and expenditures, the compilation of our month-to-date and year-to-date revenues and expenditures, and of course it compares that to our prior year revenues and expenditures as of the same time last year. A statement of cash flow, basically a statement of cash received and cash paid as of March of 2022, pie chart, basically a graph of those cash received and cash paid, and of course our F statements, which are our combined statements of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, basically the district's balance sheet and income statement as of March of 2022. Madam President, if we were to turn to the second divisor that speaks to the snapshot analysis, we would note that revenues as a percentage of our budget, revenues is about 54% of our total budget. Expenditures at about 46%. Again, we're at about 50% of the fiscal year. Of course, expenditures are at 46%, so we are expending less than what was budgeted for the fiscal year, which is a good sign. We also see our payroll expenditures as of March of 2022 compared to March of 2021. We see those expenditures up just a little bit, and that is because we had to make an adjustment to ensure that we were not supplanting. But those expenditures, we've already checked for the month of April, and those expenditures are back in line again. And I can speak to more about that if you need to. Secondly, we got the local revenues comparison. And we see our local revenues compared to March of last year. We see about $3.1 million for fiscal year 2022 compared to about $2.6 million last year in March. And lastly, our general fund analysis. Last year, March of 2021, we had about $58 million as our general fund balance. This year, we're at about $88 million for our general fund balance. Madam President.
Mr. Watts, on the 88 million, I know that's gonna fluctuate.
Yes.
But is that true? Is that good?
That is very, very good. As you know, the state requires that we have at least a 1 month fund balance. Our 1 month fund balance requirement is about $19.5 million. And right now we're at about 88 million. Of course, some of those monies are already budgeted for the remaining months of the fiscal year, but we are projecting to end fiscal year 2022 with over $66 million in our fund balance.
That is awesome. Another excellent report. Anybody have questions for Mr. Watts? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, let me also just state, a month or so ago, I mentioned that the board was sending out an RFP for a financial advisor. We did get the RFP out. Of course, our bond attorney and tax attorney helped us complete our RFP. We sent it out on last Monday. We project to have all the responses in by the end of this month. And what we'll do, we'll have a matrices and we'll select the top 2 or 3 companies. The superintendent, of course, will bring those before the board, let them present before the board, and the superintendent will make a recommendation to the board.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Potential school closings, Dr. Moore? But Ms. Dr. Moore, before we get that, I had a quick question since Chad is standing there. We didn't notice that you had gone to the change order for BTW, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did have one question. I just wanted to know for the change order, why wasn't these items included in the original bid amount? Is there a specific or particular reason it wasn't?
In that renovation, we tried like that ceiling, the stucco ceiling there, we were trying to reuse that, but when they started drilling into it, for the HVAC, it started coming apart. And so they asked to remove that, and then we were trying to reuse the metal frame doors on the back side of the building. When they went in and started tearing them out, they were or not tearing them out, but looking into them to repurpose them, they were rusted out at the bottom and no good anymore. And then the oil pump separator, that was ThyssenKrupp that's going to be doing the renovation on the elevator. That's them coming in and analyzing it, you know, afterwards, after the contract's in place, and saying, you've got to do this to get it up to code with those things. That's why those things are there. You're going to encounter some of those things with renovations because it's not a new slate, and you won't see it when you're just doing your initial analysis. When you start taking things apart, you'll find stuff like I mentioned the roof over there in the small building, the CMP maintenance. You couldn't see it, but when we peeled the roof back, when they started to work on and clean it up, there's a ton of rust up above there. So we're going to end up having to replace that decking there, and that'll be a future change order, I know, before we can move forward on those things. Another one was the flooring in the old cafeteria. It started to let loose from the subflooring when there was already patches of it that were doing that. We were going to try to patch that over, but as they started tearing things out and moving things, it caused that floor to break loose. But when you got a 50-year-old, 60-year-old building, you're going to encounter some of those things. So we're going to see a little bit more with the renovation jobs than we would in new construction. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Moore.
Okay, thank you. And I wanted to add one other thing to Mr. Watts' presentation to kind of remind everybody when it comes to the financial side that we were under intervention because we did not have our fund balance, and to make everybody aware that the state does not give you money to put into a savings account. You have to very strategically figure out what you need to do in order to keep your fund balance where it is. And so if you don't do that, then we used to have that old ugly word proration. We don't have that much anymore because of some other financial maneuvering that the state did. But when we had proration, if you did not have money in that reserve, then you ended up losing a lot of people, not being able to do some of the things you would have done because you had to use whatever money you could put your hands on to take care of that proration, where the state would cut you by 10% and not tell you until October, and you had everybody on board. So that reserve is important to have, and it takes a lot of diligent work to keep it where it needs to be at all times. So we appreciate Mr. Watts and all the people out in the schools that have helped with that. If he didn't just do it by himself, ideas that would surface about how do you do that, and so we managed to do it with the help of a lot of people, including the board. So thank you very much for that. So the next item the one that I'm bringing up here is potential closing of some schools during the 2023-24 school year. This is an item for the board just to have more information about. So I've asked certain people on the staff to present information that would give you an idea of where we are with certain schools and the staffing, what it takes to operate those schools on a day-to-day basis, the number of students that are now attending those schools, as well as any state allocations that we may get, which over the last 3 or 4 years, those allocations have actually gone down because the student enrollment has gone down. It's a very sensitive subject, I admit that, and that's why a lot of people don't deal with it, because it is so sensitive. A lot of people are loyal and supportive, and the schools have been around for a while in their communities, so it's a difficult sometimes situation to talk about, but in light of where we were in MPS and where we want to now stay, we have to look at everything, love our kids, love our teachers, love our communities, but at the same time, there is a time when you must look at situations and make a decision about issues and whether or not you need to address them or whether you should address them. And so that's why we have this on the agenda tonight. So I'm going to I've asked Chad, Kim, Watts, I think those are the three major ones to talk. We have two schools that we're gonna talk about tonight. One is Dunbar-Raymer, and the other is Penlala. And we wanna talk about those from the perspective of where we are and, what is, currently the situation in those schools. So I think I'll start with, maybe Kim, if you'll give us information about, you can do both schools while you're up, but the enrollment numbers and things like that, state allocation, teacher allocations, things like that. And let me say, I'm not asking anything about voting on anything tonight. This is just information that's gonna be shared with you.
I'll start with Penlala. Currently, Penlala, I always feel like I'm so loud. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay, currently, Penlala services about 100 students. Okay? 100, okay? About 100 students. A little bit over 100, but on average, it's about 100 students. If we look over time, we look at the trend, we look at averages. And the state funds us for 6.63 units, and they currently have 8.5 units. So anything over, then we have to provide for.
I'm sorry, how many units?
8.5. So, for example, we have one kindergarten teacher, one first grade teacher, one second grade teacher, one third grade teacher, and so on and so forth. And it goes to sixth grade, plus they have special ed. They have one principal. We don't count the principal because every school earns a principal. They have a counselor, and they have a librarian that they split. Okay? With the Dunbar-Raymer, they house about 75 is the average students that they have there, sometimes 76, 77, but always under 100 students in the past few years. And right now, they actually have kindergarten and first combined, second and third combined, fourth and fifth combined. They have special ed, and they have physical education, and they also have middle school and career tech. But we do that through access. And over the years, we've constantly combined the grade levels because of the drop in enrollment. Currently, the Alabama State Department of Education will fund us for several of those units, but when I say several, about a little bit over 4 units, but we have about 9 there. So anything over, we pay for. Questions?
What, do that one just one more time, what, on Dunbar, how many units? I know you said 1, but if you just add them up for me, I didn't.
Okay, 9.
They have 9, and what do we pay for?
The Alabama State Department of Education pays for a little bit over 4. That's from our foundation units.
And for Penlala, how many teachers do they have total?
8.5.
And how many do we pay for?
6.63 is what the state pays for.
Okay. All right, then, Mr. Watts.
Madam President, I would just expound just a little bit on what Kim has stated. First, as you know, we are funded teacher units based on student population. For example, in grades K through 3, let's say every 16 or 17 students, we may earn 1 teacher unit. In grades 3 to 6, and I'm just throwing some figures out there, maybe around every 18 students, we may earn 1 teacher unit. So let's say that at one school we earn 4 or 5 teacher units. However, we employ 8 or 9 teacher units. Therefore, we have to pay for that extra 3 or 4 teacher units. The State Department estimate each teacher unit to cost between $75,000 to $80,000. So every unit over are units that the district have to pick up. And let's also keep in mind that these units or this cost are recurring costs, because now you're experiencing the same situation year after year after year after year. So that personnel cost, along with the operational cost that which Chad would talk about, are recurring costs. And that's why it's cost so much to operate a school that usually have less than 300 students. Usually a district will have to start picking up that additional cost.
Okay. And I also want to add, all of those units that we consider local units, which are not units supplied by the state, this year there will be a raise, and it's 4%, I believe. And so we have to also give the raises to those people that we call local units that are not funded by the state. So the system will have to pick up those raises as well. We can't pick and choose who gets a raise. So if they are our employees, we also are required to give them a raise along with everybody else, even though they may not be supplied by the state.
Has anybody done a cost analysis of, other than what it's costing us teachers, what it's costing us for lights, cafeteria,
Chad's gonna talk about that.
you know, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Because, I'm not, it's not any fun closing any school, but we hired Volkert for a reason. We hired somebody out of our town to take an outside look through the looking glass at what we had. And we've had issues out there. I know Mary Briers and I have been out there, when she was on the board, at least 4 times with issues. You've got parents in that community that are so upset. I just sent one to Chad and you that I just received yesterday, and you've got to look at they're taking these kids out of our city to Troy because of what's going on up there. 75 on something that's K through 8. I just think it's a reality check.
Right.
Well, Chad's gonna give us the kind of information you asked about, Chad.
And let's just keep in mind that we're right now just talking about teacher units, that sometimes there's also support classified staffing that you're also paying for as well.
Right, like food, you have to have CNP workers and other people like that.
People that are cutting the grass,
Okay, so let
making it
Volker
look
do
like what they said, a golf course. I'm just telling you.
So Volker is here also if they want to chime in, maybe along with Chad at some point.
Looking at the utilities that are at the locations, and that's from the fiscal year so far, which is about 8 to 9 months. We've spent roughly $225,000 between the 2 locations, and that includes power, gas, water, dumpster service, grass, and internet. There's some things that are hard to track, and we're on I know one of the questions, we had 7 people trying to keep up the district as far as cutting our grass. So we went outside, got a contract, and then I know last year we had some complaints, and we were on a 15-day rotation with that. So we bumped it down to a 10-day rotation to keep up with it at this point and keep it like we want. And again, having good weather, the grass isn't going to grow as fast, so it will stay lower. If we get a lot of rain like we did last summer, we could get behind, and it could get back to that point. But just to address some of the grass part of it, what I can't give you are all of the maintenance cost and the logistical cost. I can't give you like the custodian cost, what we do out there as far as supplies for that. I don't have all of that detail, but it's going to be 2 to 3 times what I just gave you with $225,000. For example, pine beetles got into the trees out in front of Dunbar Raymer. We've spent year to date over there $30,000 removing those pine trees, and we worked with a group. That was a very economical cost because we worked with a group down there, did a lot of it ourselves, and they used it and they processed it for the pulp. So we were able to get some in-kind services with those things, and they didn't charge us the removal part of that, but that right there was $30,000. And then of course Mr. Thornton has to run gas pumps out of those areas, has to have somebody man those things. There's a lot of costs that go into it, all those different areas that are involved with it, but it is at least 2 to 3 times the amount of what I gave you utility-wise easily with those things. Glenn with Volkert, they did their assessment, and I'll let them speak to that, but they're all in bad need of repair, and there's items down there that need to be addressed if we're staying in those locations, and I'll let him address that part of it.
Thank you. Thank you. As Mr. Anderson was mentioning, we did part of our assessments on that. We don't have any projects going on at either one of those schools in our current program. And at the bare minimum, if we put the gymnasiums at those schools as we're putting at the other elementary schools, that's a $4.5 million expense at each location. If you do the upgrades that are needed at Dunbar, it would be approximately $16.6 million, and the upgrades at Pentlala would be a little over $10.5 million. Each of the schools, we did our demographic study to show the trending of what the population or the student enrollment would be, through 2025, and Pentlala is would be pretty standard or constant at 100 and 110, somewhere around in there, versus the 260 capacity at that school. And then Dunbar this year is 76, and it doesn't look like it's going to change. If it did anything, it would drop down a little bit, and that's a 286 capacity school, but it's running at 42%.
That 286 K8?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, I just wanted the board to start to hear some of this information, which is basic information. As I said before, I'm not making a recommendation to the board tonight, but I think it is something that, doing our due diligence, we need to, hear the information and start to think about, based on all of this information. And what I'll do is I'll ask the staff as well as Volkert. I think Volkert has already given you that information, but to put together a document that has all of the information that we covered tonight in it, so that you would have it to review for your future reference.
Yeah, my question is, I hear what you're saying, and we're talking about building and teachers and all that, but tell me what's going to happen to the children. What thought has gone into that?
So I can answer that.
Okay.
Basically, what you would have to do, if at some point those two schools are closed, you would have to do some looking at zone lines and rezoning those students to send them to other schools that are within reasonable proximity to the locations. So, you would look at, not every kid would go necessarily to the same point. You would look at, for maybe east side, west side, or whatever, closer to, based on where they live, where would they be going. So you'd have to do a little rezoning for those kids to send them to some other schools that are still open and viable at the time.
So we don't know at this point, like, what that would mean as far as travel time, but on the bus.
Right, we do not know, but I could ask Thornton. We try to have the burden of travel to be somewhere an hour or less than, in some cases it may go over a little bit, but then you have to, bump that up against the cost. In this case, it sounded almost like 25, 30 million to actually run a school, do the repairs and do all that in order to keep that school viable for 75 kids.
Do the
So
kids
you
that
have to look at that.
The kids that are there now, do they live in reasonable proximity to the school, or are they bused in?
They live within that area. Of course, it's a more rural area, so the travel may be a little bit further, mile-wise. And then we have some, I believe, who are there in some places on AAA, which means they come from other places and they're bused there. I think Mr. Thornton told me earlier, Ted, if you can remember, he starts a bus route for some children.
When I first came into the district, we had some students coming from the city down to Dunbar, Amherst, and the
So this
That's,
could
those
be
are
a,
AAA students.
what does that mean?
That means, if you're on a list of what they call failing schools, you can request a transfer under the AAA
Got it.
and be,
And it was a choice by those parents to send them down.
So Dr. Moore, I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
With all of the information that we've been going through over the last year with the studies with Volcker and making our decisions based on recommendations, I guess I'm a little not, I don't know what word to use, but the information, could it not have gotten to us in this fashion or this recommendation sooner, because we were having meetings with the monthly meetings with the board, and it was never mentioned that we talked about under capacity. We didn't fully have a discussion on closing. We had information on some schools that would potentially, be closed, but we never made any decisions. And it's almost sounding like this recommendation, I know you said that we're not doing anything tonight, but this food for thought is basically putting us in a position to make some hard decisions. And I think that the facts haven't changed, and the decisions could have been made earlier in the planning, or at least the community could have had some input in, on what was going on, or what potentially could go on.
So, I mean, the community can still have input, because I'm not making a recommendation. The number that I have of the year is next school year, so that the school, no matter what, would operate for another year. That gives you a year of gathering information in order to make a decision. Tonight is the first time, other than what Volcker has given you, where we're sharing information from different perspectives. Now, I would say this, those of you who've been around in Montgomery for a while know that this is not the first time this has been brought up. However, from what I can see over the years, there continues to be a decline in the number of students who are enrolled. There continues to be a decline in the number of allocations from teachers from the State Department. There continues to be an increase because you don't get the funding, so your expenses at the system level, those expenses go up because the enrollment is going down, so you have to continue to give certain services. And so I've been watching it for the last couple of years and seeing that decline, and knowing that we're not getting the allocation, and knowing that now we're combining kindergarten and first grade because they don't have a teacher allocation. And so part of that rests with me in observing what has been going on over the years. Is really not a Volcker kind of thing, even though they did the assessment of the facilities, and so that is information that we can incorporate. But when I look at what's happening every day, every year, based on our requirements, based on the funding that we get from the state, and based on the declining enrollment, it's very unusual to have a school that has 100 kids or 75 kids in it. It becomes less cost effective, let me put it that way. But at the end of the day, of course, the board still has the opportunity to decide, is this something we want to continue to do, or do we want to do something a little different?
Because you're looking at, and this is District 4, my district, you're
Yes, ma'am.
looking at reducing that district by 2 schools, right? And South Lawn, at one time, there was discussion about the size of the population of South Lawn Elementary School. So
I would say, as I've said to you before, some of the things, the decisions we make are fluid. They don't stay the same one year to the next. It depends on the variables. And so at some point you get to a point where in the next 8 to 10 years, someone may say, we need to close several more schools. That's a decision that has to be thought about and talked about, not ignored. Let me put it that way. So it's a very tough decision to have to make on a board. I really do understand that. It's tough on the superintendent to even bring it up, but at the same time, when you're doing your due diligence, not only in running the day-to-day pieces of a school system and the financial pieces and the things that we've had to deal with over time, you still have to look at everything. And then sometimes, you may decide, could there be a combination of schools where two smaller schools go into another school and then that becomes a reasonably sized school? So those are just things, and tonight I'm just giving you information so that you can hear the status currently of those two schools. A year from now, 6 months, it may be you hear the status of,
Oh, sure, yeah.
say, another school that's decreasing in size for whatever reason. But those are things you have to look at as a board. Not very comfortable sometimes, but you can't do away with it. I think, in some systems there are places where they close 10 or 15 schools in the run of a year and a half, 2 years, because they never looked at it. And so you continue to have these very small situations. The cost was going up as far as what the school system had to be responsible for. So it was difficult, but there are places that have closed 10 or 15 at one time. So it's just something we have to look at. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just didn't want to lose my train of thought. So, were you finished, Cassandra? One of the things I wanted to talk about, and I know it's a tough decision. I get all of that. I just also realized that these two schools are in our most rural areas, and my comment the last time was that they still have to be provided in educational services. I understand maybe busing them may be doable, but there is going to be some extended travel time to get to some of these schools. One of the things you touched on, which I just, if we're just providing input into this receiving of information, I like the idea of if we could combine the schools to increase that population. And as far as the maintenance piece, I can't remember which one was 16.6 million or 10.5 million, but we have a good reserve that maybe we could tap into to upgrade or renovate that school to get it doable with, and I don't know, with the understanding that maybe however many years down the line, it may still have to close. But just to, and I hope that's not the case. I'm hoping Montgomery's gonna flourish and grow. But just, if I can just add that suggestion, since we're just receiving all of this as information, I just wanted to just say that's where I stand.
So Mr. Watts was about to fall out of his chair over there.
Mr.
But
Watts,
I would let him talk, but I would tell you why I think he's about to fall out of his chair.
Tell me why. I don't want you to pass out.
Okay, so one of the things, it's kind of like your household budget. When you get a savings account, it doesn't mean your kids can go to the mall and start spending all the money, because there will be times when you have to go into your reserve because of some emergency or something that comes up. Now, and then if you think about it, you can build an elementary school for less than $16 million. And we said 16 and 10. So you can build I'm not saying build a school. I'm just saying for that amount of money to repair $20-something million, you can build a pretty good elementary school for far, far less than that. And so I'm just saying to you as a board, because I know it's a sensitive subject, but you still have to think about what does that mean financially? How reasonable is it to do financially? What would be the best way to do it? And I think that information will come to you from the superintendent at some point to say, this is what we've done, we've looked at it, and here's what we're suggesting. But you have to look at all of those things and think about it. Why would you spend $16 million to repair a building when you can build a brand new state-of-the-art elementary school for way less than that?
That's why we were here to just throw it out on the table.
Right, and you're building it for 100 kids. So I'm just saying, take all the variables into consideration. You don't have to make, but if you have questions, send them to me and we'll start to generate answers for you. But all of those things come into play. That's why I asked these people to give you their reports tonight, so you would know. And Kim even gave you the projected number of teacher allocations that we will have next school year, which, you know, that's going down, so if we have to have special ed and some other folks there, that number, and there's something in special ed called maintenance of effort, so you can't just let all your special ed people go. You kind of maintain the effort that you had the year before, even though you may only have a few kids. So that's a federal thing. You can get money taken from you. There are a lot of little, unfortunately, I guess, compliance issues for school systems. There are a lot of background things that come out that we know about, that from time to time you may hear about it, but you have to take all of those things into consideration when you're looking at even staffing. Okay, so I just wanted to float that tonight. That's no recommendation at all. So.
Okay, and now we're gonna turn the floor over to Dr. Coleman and Ms. Smith.
Well, she will be presenting. I
Okay.
think I did the.
Okay.
That's it.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Madam President, fellow board members, Superintendent Moore. We were given a task a couple of months ago to do a little research, develop biographies on the persons who were named by the committee as possible names to rename some of our educational institutions. I like to say that we are looking at honoring our native sons and daughters who have contributed to the legacy of our city. There are a few caveats. We know that organizations and governments name buildings to commemorate the lives of humanitarians and philanthropists. We do know that naming buildings can generate a little controversy regarding merit, but the candidates that have been provided here by our committee, each can be recognized as having some significant merit. The debate over renaming schools based on merit and honor has led us to this night. Thank you, Madam President, for giving us the opportunity to do this research, because doing the research we were able to learn a lot about some very important individuals, and I'm certain that there are many, many more individuals from our community that we can learn a little bit about. But we do want to recognize that it is important in this process that we choose to honor individuals who have made significant contributions in the community, in the nation, and some even across the globe. Looking at those names that were submitted for Jefferson Davis High School. The first, Judge Frank M. Johnson. I will say that it has turned into being a very long night, and so I will try and make this a little bit briefer than what you see here. But we do know that Federal Judge Johnson played a critical role in shaping civil rights in America, especially here in Alabama. His legal decisions desegregated schools in Alabama and busing in Montgomery. His decisions eliminated the state poll tax and allowed blacks to serve on juries. Other rulings I found interesting impacted civil rights not only for blacks, but for inmates and the mentally ill. It would be interesting for some of us to know that Judge Johnson attended and graduated from the University of Alabama, and he did serve in the military. Next we have Percy, Lavonne, Julian. Dr. Julian was a chemist and entrepreneur. He was a pioneer in chemical synthesis of medicinal drugs and figured out how to synthesize these drugs in order to make them more affordable and be mass produced. He was born in Montgomery, Alabama, and like many of our students, he succeeded against the odds. It was said that he was poorly prepared for college. Others say that he was not allowed to go to high school. But regardless of this so-called inadequate preparation, he was accepted in college and he excelled. Julian became the first black chemist elected to the National Academy of the Sciences. He was elected to the National Inventors Hall of Fame, and his synthesis of, forgive me if I mess this up, phasostigmine was recognized by the American Chemical Society as one of the top 25 achievements in the history of American chemistry. Next we have Victor Tulane. Mr. Tulane was a native of Wetumpka, Alabama. He was also an entrepreneur. At the age of 15, Tulane walked from Wetumpka to Montgomery with no money, no connections, but he had a plan. And he worked his plan. He became a very successful businessman and was elected to serve on numerous boards throughout the area, Tuskegee and Montgomery. He donated to the YMCA, at that time a whites-only organization, and the leaders of the Montgomery area recognized his impact that he was making in society, and they have honored him by naming buildings and communities in his honor. Coretta Scott King, we all know, was an American activist and the wife of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. She received her Bachelor of Arts degree in music and education. She also attended the New England Conservatory of Music, where she earned degrees in voice and violin. As an activist, she took part in the Montgomery bus boycott, and she also did global travel and work along with and beside her husband. She traveled throughout the United States, speaking on behalf of racial and economic justice, women's and children's rights, LGBTQ plus dignity, religious freedom, gun control, and the needs of poor and homeless individuals. The next we have Mahala Dickerson. Mahala Ashley Dickerson was also born in Montgomery and was a civil rights advocate and lawyer. She graduated cum laude from Fisk University. She was the first black female attorney admitted to the Alabama and the Alaska bar, and she was the second African-American woman admitted to the Indiana bar. What was really significant about her was her work to advocate for the rights of the poor, the underprivileged, and minorities. She successfully prosecuted a precedent-setting equal pay case on behalf of university professors who were female professors who were receiving less pay than their male counterparts. We also have Mary Fair Burks. Ms. Burks challenged the Jim Crow system of segregation by insisting on using white-only elevators, restrooms, and other facilities that she was not supposed to utilize. She received her BA in English Literature at Alabama State College at that time, and later her Master of Arts from the University of Michigan. She created the Women's Political Council, which she led from 1946 to 1950. The work that she did there laid the foundation for that bus boycott. Next, we have Eugene W. Carter. Looking at Carter Hill Road as one of the possible names, research took us in a lot of different directions. I do not know that Carter Hill was named for Eugene Carter, but an anthology of street names that was compiled in 1995 by research students at AUM, they do mention Eugene Carter. They mention Carter's Hill and also Carter's Farms that were located in the area that is now known as Carter Hill Road. A Google Scholar online search engine where we searched for Eugene Carter revealed a Judge Eugene W. Carter, who was a circuit court judge who served during the Civil Rights Movement. During that period, there was a march or a boycott where Dr. King was brought to trial because he had been charged with a misdemeanor under the Alabama anti-boycott law. He was tried and convicted. Judge Eugene Carter refused to sentence him to prison on the grounds that King had at least worked to avoid any violence. Looking at Carter Hill, we also found information on Luther Leonidas Hill Jr. In the early years of his practice, he was an active member of the county medical and surgical societies. Dr. Luther Leonidas Hill would eventually become the first American physician to perform a successful open heart surgery. You really need to do some reading and learn more about the work that Leonidas Hill did. He published an article, The Wounds of the Heart, and the research described his surgery on a 12-year-old boy who nobody else would operate on, and he successfully corrected the problem with that young man's heart. Again, these are some outstanding stories that we all need to learn more about. Another name offered up was Southside. The only thing that I could provide for you here is that it is a directional location. It is considered the south of center, and the Urban Dictionary does offer a few examples of what Southside means, but I'd rather you do your deep dive into learning about a little bit more about Southside. Renaming of Robert E. Lee High School, there were a couple of persons that ended up on both lists. So when you hear about Dr. Julian, his name appeared on both lists, and Ms. Robinson's name appeared on both lists, but we'll only talk about them once. Others that were mentioned, Dr. John Henry Winston Jr. Dr. Winston was one of 2 black physicians to integrate the segregated public hospital system here in Montgomery. He also served as a volunteer physician for Alabama State University's Health Center, and he served on the Montgomery County Board of Education. He graduated from Alabama State College and earned his master's from Columbia. He also served in the military. His most notable professional accomplishment was co-founding the Pryor Winston Medical Center, a practice dedicated to providing health care to the underserved in West Montgomery. Another name presented was Henry Spears. Mr. Spears was the longest-serving member of the Montgomery County School Board, as well as being the first black chairman of this board. Mr. Spears gave us more than 32 years of distinguished service. He was a charter member of the Alabama Caucus of Black School Board Members. He served on the United States District Court under Judge Frank Johnson, and he served as vice president for development of Alabama State University. In addition to shaping policy that yielded good results for the students of Montgomery, Mr. Spears was also a classroom teacher, an assistant principal at Carver High School, and executive director of the Cleveland Avenue YMCA. Another name given is Inez Baskin. Ms. Baskin was a black journalist who documented the Montgomery bus boycott for Jet magazine. She earned her degree from Alabama State University and became a licensed social worker then earned a degree in divinity from Selma University. Ms. Baskin implemented the first Head Start program in Montgomery and implemented the first hot lunch program that served low-income children. I don't know what happened to Ms. Robinson's picture because it was there. I promise it was there. I've been working on this for 2 months, so anyway, Joanne Robinson was an activist during the Civil Rights Movement and educator here in Montgomery, Alabama. She became active in that Women's Political Council for African American professional women to ensure that they were able to adequately be involved in civic affairs and to increase voter participation. She was an English instructor at Alabama State, and she was the one responsible for distributing over 50,000 flyers overnight calling for the Montgomery bus boycott. Those of you who know anything about mimeograph machines, those 50,000 copies were mimeographed. And those of you who don't know, let some old school teacher tell you about it. Ralph Abernathy is the next name that was submitted. Reverend Abernathy was a Black American pastor and civil rights leader who worked alongside and was a very close aide to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was a champion for equality. He was also a veteran of the military, a college professor, and pastor of the First Baptist Church, Ripley Street, at that time one of the largest African American churches in the country. Reverend Abernathy worked with King and others to establish the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, where he later became president. He received a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics from Alabama State College. The next name we have is Andrew Jackson Beard. Andrew Jackson Beard was a prominent African American entrepreneur and inventor in the late 1800s. He invented a specially designed double plow, a type of rotary steam engine, which is still being used. He purchased real estate also, and he started a taxi service in Jefferson County, Alabama. He was inducted posthumously into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in Ohio. The next name offered is Reverend Robert Gratz. Reverend Gratz was a white minister of an African American congregation in Montgomery. Due to his participation with the bus boycott, his home was bombed several times because he participated in the carpooling, driving African Americans to work or to shop. He and his wife were well known in the city, but at one point they left and traveled north. And when they left Montgomery, they still became actively involved in civic activities that included diversity groups. They also participated in One Montgomery and League of Women Voters here. Each year, they hosted the annual Gratz Symposium at the National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture at Alabama State University. Reverend Gratz received his Bachelor of Divinity from Evangelical Trinity Lutheran Church. When they went north, they helped to organize a campus race relations club. The next name that was presented is Lee. It has been suggested that the school retain the name Lee and use the letters as an acronym. Robert E. Lee, or Lee, was born at Stratford Hall Plantation in Westmoreland, Virginia, to Henry Lee III and Anne Hill Carter Lee. And if you'll note, the wife, has the Hill Carter in her name. So again, there are various places we can find that Carter Hill has significant relevance here in Montgomery. Lee entered West Point in the summer of 1825, where he majored in engineering. He was an American Confederate general, appointed eventually as the overall commander of the Confederate States Army. And again, we have a directional location as a possible name for Lee, that is North Side. North Side also can be considered the north of center, and again, the Urban Dictionary offered several interpretations, and I did post one of those examples, an exclamation of disgust or humor towards someone trying to be cool to fit into a social group, whatever. Additionally, we have the work cited pages where we try to give you notations as to where we got some of our information. I would like to call your attention to the fact that I interviewed a couple of people, and I actually dug into a book by Dr. Richard Bailey. I'm not going to try and find it up there. Let's go ahead to that final slide so that I can give special thanks to my colleague, Mrs. Erica Watkins-Smith, for her assistance in the research and for the design of this presentation. I would like to thank the original renaming committee for the names that were submitted, as well as Randall Williams of New South Books and Dr. Richard Bailey for their input. Thank you for your time. Madam President, this report was for information only.
Thank you. It's an excellent, excellent report, too.
I have a question. Excellent report. Thank you for the information. I learned some stuff I didn't know. So I have a question and maybe seeking information. I was not on the board when the vote occurred to do the renaming. And so based on the vote of the board, Lee, Lanier, and Jeff Davis were included in there. We know that Lanier is going to be closed at some time, but I feel that I have to make this statement to continue the name of Lanier without the board addressing to do something with that name. I think that that's a disservice to the original vote of the board, and I think that that needs to be addressed.
You get no argument from me. This was following up on a request from the president and the board to do the research on those 10 names.
Yes.
But I'm hoping, as you are, that we will continue our conversations.
Yes.
Did we, so there was not a recommendation for Lanier? It was just for Lee and Jeff Davis tonight?
Those were the only names that were submitted from the renaming committee.
So there were no names submitted for Lanier at all? And what was the reason for that?
Once the decision was made to decommission Lanier, then the committee dropped that. They didn't pursue a name for that.
But it's not closing this year.
No.
So,
Closing next year, right?
I mean, I'm confused because we voted for all 3 schools to have the name change. So I didn't realize that. I thought I was missing some slides actually. So, I mean, that was the original vote and the school's going to be open. So am I missing something? I'm sorry, but I stay confused. So what happened? I'm not putting you on the hot seat, Brenda. I'm just wondering.
Absolutely not.
I have to ditto Ms. Brown.
When the request was made to do research on those 10 recommended names, I volunteered to do research, and that's all. We did not go into a lot of detail on what to do about Lanier. And I think, as you both have so eloquently put it on the floor, it is something that we as a board might take up within the next few months.
Well, we
I'm
voted on it,
confused.
so we
I was
voted on it,
thinking-
so I'm just not understanding why this wasn't included. I mean, regardless if the school closed tomorrow, we still voted to change the name.
Yes, because we can't rescind the vote like that.
Oh,
without-
absolutely.
Yes, so I guess I wanna know who made the decision to not explore going with the 3 schools instead of.
I think
was
we,
thinking-
I have to say this,
It
I
was
was
ma-
gonna really try to pretend to have duct tape on my mouth, but God forbid I can't. I have to say this for the city of Montgomery. I think the things that happened, the fact, Jana, that you dropped off the board twice, the first board, no, let's go there. Let's go there. If we had a leader of the committee, John Gilchrist, drop off because of the shenanigans, all I want to say is you've divided this board, you're dividing our city, but go ahead, okay? I have to say my piece on this, and I'm speaking for the part of Montgomery. You want to bring up a school that we're closing, okay? My God, not all of you that are making these decisions are making decisions for schools you never went to. I'm gonna end at that.
I'm sorry, I graduated in 1979 from Lanier.
Right.
Dr. Keith.
So if the school's going to close, let it close in peace. If we're closing a Robert E. Lee, let it close in peace. I mean, these names that came up tonight are not the names that these schools came up with. We want to say that, they've come up with them. The Montgomery Advertiser and the TV came up with names, but y'all have come up with new names, whatever names. Y'all do what you want. But you know what? Kay Ivey signed a bill that, I'm telling you, when it's all said and done, I'm not going to be smiling because there's nothing here to be smile or proud about. How this board has the right to do what they're doing, I'm sorry, it's wrong. We made the decision to do it, we're doing it. But those of you that just keep sticking the knives, I'm not wondering if there's not a personal agenda there. And I had to say that.
Madam Chair, again, this concludes my report. It was for information only. Again, I thank you for your time.
And thank you for a great report. We can take this up at a later date. Okay? We can.
I just wonder how the names that got dropped off.
Well, that was a decision that was made by the committee, and as a board, those were recommendations for the board. We may use those names, but I was under the understanding that the ultimate choice of the names comes from the board. So we have the opportunity to either use those names or even opportunity to choose another name. It's up to the board.
And so may I add a 30-second spot. When you think about timing, and if you change the names of schools, that involves at some point changing maybe colors, changing mascots, changing lots of things related to a school that will continue. We know, as it stands now, that Lanier will not continue. So I think if you want to be expeditious and looking at all the things involved with changing a name, when we know that a school is probably within a year or so not going to be in existence as a school anymore, that you might want to think, why is it necessary to come up with a name for that particular school? Because it's no longer going to be in existence. It kind of took care of itself in this overall, and I know the board voted to change a name, but if you think about it, if it's only going to be around another year or so, you would only have the new name for 1 year. When you look at Lee and some of these others we're changing, they're going to have to change letterhead, they're going to have to change lots of things. Compared to a school that's only going to be around 1 year. And I know that, or a year or so, but I know that we voted it, but sometimes things take care of themselves in the fact that they're no longer going to be in existence. And so you don't, in my opinion, that's my opinion, the necessity of changing the name for a year or so, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but because we voted, but that school's not going to be there anymore.
Well,
So
let me
it kinda
ask this
nullifies
stupid question
itself.
then, since I'm already, been called out. So
Why not?
Then my question is, once again, this is probably irrelevant, then when the statue of Robert E. Lee was torn down,
Should have been put back.
we knew that the school was gonna be moved or rebuilt, so why didn't we just put the statue back up since it was just gonna be temporary? To me, it's the same thing.
Well, let me answer that quickly, and then we're gonna move on. The statue was damaged so badly that we had an attorney general's opinion that we did not have to replace it. So that's why it was not
And it
put
would have
back up
been
at the
very
time.
costly. Was it $50,000 or something
A
to,
little bit more than that.
more than that
About
to
100.
repair it?
And so the attorney general gave us something in writing that said, you don't have to put that statue back up or replace it because of the cost attached to it. So that's why it was not.
And at that time, we also did not know that Lee would be rebuilt. That was pre that.
Right.
And I'm gonna say one other thing, and then I'm gonna hopefully wrap up this meeting, but the students at Lanier and the association, current association of alumni there, really wanna keep the name. I'm just saying. The students like being the castle. So with that, I'm gonna call this meeting to a close with the bash of the gavel, and I'm gonna start our, board meeting. We're called to order. We still have a quorum. Can we get an approval of the agenda?
Madam President, I move that we approve the agenda.
I second.
All in favor with a show of hands? Okay. I have a few remarks to make, because you know I like to start off our meetings with something good that's happening. This morning I observed middle school students from every school in MPS. Every middle school was at the lab on Dexter Avenue participating in an Ed Farm Student Fellows in Action. These kids, these teams were there to code and to make videos and to, I'm not even sure what an AR lab is, but they were there for that. My favorite thing was the Urban Nerd Com. They were learning to do things with coding that I can't even imagine, and excited about it. It's a collaboration between Apple, Ed Farm, and AUM, and these students are having opportunities to compete in such creative endeavors, and it's something really to be applauded, and every school participated. Next, I'd like to mention some outstanding teachers and students who took part in the state speech and debate tournament. Cassie Rockette Rogers created the speech and debate team at Carver High School, and this brand new team has now been invited to nationals in Louisville, Kentucky. Not only that, Ms. Rockette Rogers was named the state's new coach of the year. The Lamp High School team also competed in the state tournament and finished third overall. In addition, their coach, Jordan Berry, won the State Coach of the Year award. And speaking of Lamp, I have some news that probably isn't going to be surprising, but Lamp was once again named the #1 high school in the state of Alabama by U.S. News and World Report. BTW was ranked 11th in the state, and Brewtech came in at number 20. And I think that deserves a round of applause. Finally, I'd like to congratulate all the students who took part in the Montgomery Youth in City Conference, and especially Latridra Petway of BTW, who was named Youth Mayor for 22 and 23. There are wonderful things happening at MPS. Ms. Jones, Ms. Gillis, Mr. Sinkfield.
One second. Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Moore, and board members. We are thrilled to recognize, as you mentioned, Madam President, several people tonight, but I will be brief. But I'm really excited this evening because we're recognizing two remarkable and inspiring scholars. I'd like to call up, and if they're still with us, Ms. Haley Mullins and Mr. Amir Robinson. If you all can please join me. And as they're coming up, Haley and Amir have both been named, Madam President, semifinalists for the 2022 U.S. Presidential Scholars Program. Only 14 students in the state of Alabama and 620 students in the United States have received this recognition. The U.S. Department of Education chooses up to 161 students each year for the final list of presidential scholars, and that announcement is coming up extremely soon. We're all hoping to see these two names right here from Montgomery. Now, real quickly, I have to share, Haley is in the biomedical academic program at Brew Tech. She plans to study nursing as an undergraduate and then attend medical school to pursue an MD. And I don't think Haley's here tonight, okay? And Amir is in the photography magnet at BTW, and he plans to attend Savannah College of Arts and Design in Atlanta. On May 19th, Amir will be in New York City, where he will be recognized during the Gordon Parks Foundation Gala. I think that's amazing. Just to give you an idea of this event, Dr. Moore and Madam President, some of the honorees at this event will be Spike Lee, and the presenters include people such as Wynton Marsalis and Anderson Cooper. Again, we're very proud of these two and all that they have accomplished. Let's give them another round of applause. Oh, yeah, we have his parents, yes, Amir's parents are here, and I thought I saw Mr. Mullins. Teacher, Ms. Thomas, is that right? Yep, all righty. Again, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, Dr. Starks, and we do have Dr. Starks, president of principal of BTW. All righty, thank you all so much. All righty. Madam President, you know, part of the recognitions program, we honor 2 employees, and we'll start with our classified employee, which is, and I hope I don't mess this up, Miss Jonna DeJournette. And here's what our principal, Miss Sides, and she's coming from Highland Gardens, and this is what our principal has to say. Miss DeJournette is an amazing teacher assistant. She does whatever it takes to keep the school going. She is always willing to cover classes and support students. Ms. DeJournette keeps a smile on her face, as we can see, and never complains about anything. She is such a pleasure to work with and is a fabulous member of the Fierce Panther family. Let's give her a round of applause. And I do believe that the local chapter of AEA also has a special gift for Ms. DeJournette as well. And as they're taking pictures, we would like to thank our partners in education, Baptist Health, for providing a $25 gift card along with your certificate. All righty, next up we have our classified employee of the month, Mr. Tislam Ellis from Lanier High School. Right. And we also have Mr. Roberson, the principal. If you'd like to join in. And here's what Mr. Roberson had to say about Mr. Ellis. He says, Mr. Ellis proudly serves as our director of activities, which he does an amazing job, and is a phenomenal teacher. He uses his planning period to ensure that our business, marketing, and co-op students are in compliance to retain their jobs. In many cases, he has doubled his class load to ensure that Lanier has class coverage across the building when teachers are absent. He is known by many of the students as Uncle Tim, or by the Lanier High School inner circle as nephew. He will always go the extra mile to ensure that the students are taken care of. All events are top-notch and advocates for the school throughout his many community affiliations. Let's give Mr. Ellis a huge round of applause. Madam President, while they're taking pictures, I am so sorry I didn't get this note over to you, but we wanted to share this tonight. Our Impact Center had an amazing application season. They received 1,184 applications, and this school year they will enroll new students of 735 students. Now that is almost a 60% increase over at Impact. So we wanted to share that tonight as well. And the signing day, yes, that's right. We had phenomenal career day signings at Lee High School as well as Impact. So thank you, ma'am, for that. And next up, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Kim Gillis. She has a few recognitions as well.
Good evening again. I'd like to recognize all of our teachers who are on a TEAMS contract, whether you've got your STEM certification or not. If you're in the audience, please stand. Now, board, I want you to know that to be on a TEAMS contract, and you've approved every one of the people you see standing, plus some additional ones. We have about 62 teachers who are on a TEAMS contract. But one of the things that they have to do is get an advanced credential. And of those, I'm going to list the names of the ones who are now STEM certified, which is awesome for our kids and for our school district. So when I call your name, if you'll come up front, please. Some of you I know have left, and some of you sent me little messages saying I gotta go or I can't be here any longer or whatever the case may be. But I still want you to know who the names are. Whitney Hall from Lee High School. Crystal Johnson from Lee High School. Tasha Morris from Lee High School. John Smith from Lee High School. Keisha Wesley from McIntyre Academy. Karen Davis from McKee Middle. Jennifer Julius from McKee Middle. Jessica Leonard Johnson from McKee Middle. Frederick Lloyd from McKee Middle. Artisa Carlisle Brown from Carr Middle. James Redden from Carr Middle. Dr. Cleo Griswood from Goodwin Middle. Elizabeth Parker from Goodwin Middle. Natasha Broaden from Jeff Davis. Ashley Brown from Jeff Davis. Dr. Patricia Hampton from Jeff Davis. Gwenisha Perry from Jeff Davis. Angela Vaughn from Jeff Davis. Pamela West from Jeff Davis. Kadisha Williams from Jeff Davis. And Timothy Horton from Lanier High School. I want to tell you that these teachers have worked so very hard. Did I miss anyone? Oh, there you go. Here we go. Ms. Warren is here as well. And is that Kenzie behind the mask? You back here. Good. Kenzie and Moncrief. Very good. Very good. Okay. I want to tell you that these teachers have worked very hard to get STEM certified. And I want to give you just a little information that they've had to do. First of all, they've had to put up with all of my Zoom meetings. They've had to put up with all of my emails, and they have been many. Me calling them, asking them for things, making sure that they're staying on track. And I appreciate the hard work that they do with their kids every day. But they also had to complete science, math, and computer science courses for STEM. That includes 3 domains. One that's entitled Create an Environment for Learning, which was 24 hours. Building Scientific Understanding, which is 37 hours. And engaging students in scientific and engineering practices, which is 29 hours, which is a total of 90 hours of extra PD that they had to do to get STEM certified. So I think that deserves a round of applause. And I will say, not one time when I called or when I asked them to do something, did they ever complain. They usually just said, yes, ma'am. So we appreciate the work that they've done with our students, that they're doing in classrooms every day. I hope at the next board meeting I'll have more teachers who will be STEM certified, and maybe we'll add more teams, contract teachers as well. So congratulations to you all. We appreciate the work that you do with our students and that you do in your schools every day, because these are true leaders. Okay, at this point, we need to go into executive session. Oh, excuse me. Okay, I'm sorry. Please.
We got a little money we're gonna give before you go into
Oh, yeah,
executive
we're gonna
session.
sit here just as long as we need to.
Thank you. Good evening to the president of the board, board members, Superintendent Moore, and members present. My name is Darrell Sinkfield. I'm a member of a fraternity, Omega Psi Phi fraternity. And tonight, the brothers of Omega Psi Phi fraternity would like to honor and give out 2 grants to 2 public high schools here in Montgomery. On behalf of Project Perseverance and Omega Iota chapter of Omega, we'd like to present 2 grants. The first one will be presented by our Vice President, Brother Ware, who's over Project Perseverance. And our second grant will be presented by our past bossless, Brother Salon. Let's give him a hand as they come.
On behalf of Project Perseverance, we'd like to present a grant in the amount of $500 to Carver High School for $500.
Good evening, everyone.
one second, while Mr. Ziegler is changing, I do want to mention that these grants are funded through our annual Get Fit for Education 5K and as a part of our community uplift. Omega Psi Phi fraternity, one of our watchword for the fraternity is service. And we always want to provide service and giving back to the community. And that's why we have adopted these two schools to give these grants to. You got it, Z? Okay. Our past boss is Brother Salam.
Good evening, everyone, again. My name is Abdul Salam. I'm the immediate past boss for Omega Psi Phi fraternity, Omega Untitled Chapter. We have here another check for $500 to Park Crossing High School that we're going to present to Mr. Thomas, Terrence Thomas. And thank you for all the work we're doing, and thank you everybody in this room for keeping MPS moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. Now we need to go into an executive session to discuss real property and pending litigation. If I can get a motion.
Madam President, I move that we move into executive session.
I second.
All in favor with a show of hands? Okay.
And how long?
2:02.
The board will go into executive session to discuss real property and pending litigation. We should be in executive session approximately 15 or 20 minutes. During executive session, no votes will be taken. We'll be back.
Okay, so, I need some of the staff, Watts and Marvin, if you wanna come, Kim, and Bo. Oh, we're staying here? No, we're gonna 202. All right, 202 upstairs. You don't need it really. Well, I mean, you want to take a tab on it? Reverend Jones, so they come out.
I like your shirt. Very much, very snazzy. That's probably an old word. What do you think?
Stop doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
It wasn't on here. It'll happen in one session. I mean, in the regular session.
So it's gonna be on this?
It wasn't added in the work session. When we did like an overview and review. But it can be discussed. I can give you the number and we find it.
Probably Hershey.
I think the best thing to do is
I'm not going to. I mean, I just.
I don't want anybody to have nothing. Or were you trying to, was something catastrophic that happened where you had to have somebody with you, so that's still the person. But I think it's enough time, enough window time, if she comes available. Allow that transition to happen.
Okay, the executive session has been completed. No decisions were made during the meeting, and we will now reconvene the regular board meeting. And tonight, we have no citizens or public comments, so we're gonna move toward the consent agenda. Dr. Moore?
Okay, I recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion?
Wait a minute.
The consent number 9 on your agenda.
Can I look at yours? I must have put that up.
Any
For the
discussion?
Discussion, just one quick thing for item F on there, the bid report. If we could start getting the bid tabulations again, I just wanted to put that
Chad,
in there.
Mr., did you hear what she said?
Yes, I do provide bid tabulations of the new bids. If I'm doing a bid extension, there is no.
All right, well, for the new ones, I mean, because I don't recall seeing, and it could just be memory, but yeah. Well, I'll look for it.
And on discussion, I remember what my problem was. I wanted to pull F and vote on it separately.
F,
The
F, the
work
organization.
session minutes? We're in the
10F.
We're not
Nine.
there.
No, we're in
We're on
nine.
we're on 9. We're on the
Oh,
consent
okay,
agenda.
sorry.
All right.
we just
No,
don't
any
have-
other
we haven't got to
discussion?
it yet.
All in favor of the consent agenda with a show of hands, please. Okay. Now, on number 10, before I turn it over to Dr. Moore, I would like for us to pull G and H, table them to the next meeting. So, Dr. Moore?
Okay. And Dr. Keith, do you wanna add?
Well, I think that the fact that she moved G and H to table it, I'm fine with that.
That take care of yours?
Yeah, that takes
Okay,
care of
all right, then we'll go through each item then. On 10A, I'm gonna ask you to pull number 69. It will not be something that you will vote on, number 69. So now I recommend approval of the personnel report, certified personnel.
Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I move that we approve the superintendent's recommendation with the removal of G and H and pulling number 69.
Okay, we're just doing number A right now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm all the way out the door at this point.
But I'll accept that. I think that was a fine,
I move that we approve the superintendent's
That's what it is. It's
recommendation, personnel report, certified personnel, removing number 69.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor with a show of hands? Dr. Moore?
I recommend approval of the personnel report, classified personnel.
Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for personnel report, classified personnel.
I second.
All in favor with a show of hands? Dr. Moore?
Recommend approval of the compensation study, the proposal by Mercer.
Madam President, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for compensation study, proposal B, Mercer.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? Dr. Moore?
I recommend approval of the settlement of litigation, settlement case 2-15, Alabama Middle District.
Is there a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve Dr. Moore's recommendation, item D, on the consent agenda, number 10.
I second.
Any discussion?
Can't wait to
All
see
with a
this
show of
next.
hands? Thank you. Dr. Moore?
This is E. I recommend approval of the board resolution regarding the purchase price of the property for the new R.E. Lee High School, giving, the superintendent, permission to execute a contract once it has gone through all the legal entities.
Is there a motion?
Madam President, I make I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation on item C, the approval of board resolution approving the purchase of property for new Lee High School.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? Thank you. Dr. Moore?
All right, I recommend approval of the organizational chart or the organizational structure. It's in your packet.
Is there a motion?
G and H.
Do I have a motion?
Here it is.
Recommendation of the superintendent on the organizational chart, item F.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor with a show of hands? All opposed? Okay. And Dr. Moore?
Okay, so we're tabling G and H for further discussion with Dr. Brown. So we'll move down to, I recommend approval of the ELA textbook adoption purchases.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for the ELA textbook adoption purchase.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? And with that,
Madam President, before we adjourn, can we take a vote to please have 2 meetings next month? Since we've done like a marathon. Is this where we can say this? Or can we,
it's all right with me if you say it.
I mean, do we have to vote on that to have a working session and then 2 weeks later do a regular board meeting?
I don't think we
Not
have
really,
to
it's in
vote
your,
on it.
it's in your bylaws, so if you just wanna go back to your regular bylaws, if that's
Okay.
sort of consensus of everybody.
We don't have to vote on it. We,
We can do that.
can we please do that?
So beginning with the June. your
That's what I'm
afternoon meeting.
suggesting. Otherwise, I'm bringing a bag of crystals next time.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good.
You could bring the crystals anyway. Our next meeting, I don't know when our next meeting will be now.
First, what,
It's June
June
14th.
14th.
that'll be a work session now.
All right, yeah, okay, well, I see it. I'm
2 weeks
just
later,
making
you'll
sure.
have a board meeting.
Then
So-
2 weeks later, on the 28th.
So put that on
So
your
the first one will be a work
calendars.
session.
Okay, and June 14th is my 61st birthday, FYI.
We'll have to
So I'll bring some cake.
Okay,
No,
with,
you don't bring your own.
No, you don't bring your own cake.
We'll get your cake.
with that, at 8:34, this meeting is adjourned.
We